And joining us now to dissect the Iran war's impact on India is Kriti Upadhyaya, a foreign policy and defense analyst and Heritage Foundation visiting fellow. Good to have you with us today, Kriti. India imports more than 85% of its domestic oil needs, and around half of its crude oil imports currently transit through the Strait of Hormuz. So let's start with how the strait's closure is currently impacting India.
Well, good morning, Stefania. Thanks for having me. Well, I think that, oil prices all over are being affected right now. About 30–40% of the global shipping goes through the Strait of Hormuz, and a significant amount of oil goes through there. And then we also have Iraq, where about 1.5 million barrels of oil is produced on a daily basis. So I think oil prices are being affected all over. But I think what's also important is that while Lloyd's, the major insurer for maritime, has pulled out just yesterday, something that really sort of invigorated the markets was that President Trump has said that the dec, the U.S. Political risk underwriter, is going to come forward and help underwrite some of these insurance. So I think that definitely signals positivity to the markets. But I think, at least in the short to medium term, oil prices are definitely going to be affected.
And India currently has formal diplomatic relations with Iran. They're fairly close to each other. India has historically not cut off relations, say with Iran just because there's a dictatorship. How do you see potentially that relationship in regards to the U.S. wanting to isolate Iran and just the dynamics at play right now?
Well, India has always tried to sort of have this non-aligned stance in sort of these tricky situations. And what we're seeing right now is that while India has called all the partners in the Gulf and so on and has been in touch with the U.S., it hasn't necessarily come out and said that made a statement about what's going on in Iran. So it's not sympathized with the Ayatollah or the Iranians in a way that, say, Pakistan or some of the other countries have done. So I think that's a positive. Secondly, although there are no confirmed reports, the U.S. and India do have LIMOA, which is this logistics exchange memorandum, which basically says that, in certain operations, the U.S. can use Indian bases for refueling and maintenance and so on. Again, we don't have any confirmed reports, but there's a lot of chatter online that that's something that's already happening. Secondly, just when I woke up this morning, a few hours back, I heard that, in Indo-PACOM, we've had some amount of activity. Basically, there was this Dana, this Iranian ship that was coming out after the international fleet review off the coast of Visakhapatnam in India, and that was taken down presumably by a U.S. submarine. Now, all of this is happening quite close to the coast in India, in Indo-PACOM. So that's another thing that sort of signals that even though overtly India necessarily isn't saying or doing anything, it's at least allowing the U.S. as a friend to use some of those areas. But having said that, just finally on your point on oil, whenever there have been sanctions, say on Venezuela, on Iran, on Russia, India, while it maintains its own energy independence, has tried to lower its imports from Iran. So even when we look at from those countries, so even when we look at Iran, while for Iran those exports are huge, for India they're pretty much negligible, right? Like less than 1% or so on.
Okay. Now, Khamenei's envoy to New Delhi claims that the U.S. conflict with Iran aims to block the rise of India and China. How do you see it?
Well, I've been seeing these arguments floating around that, the main thing is really China. I'm seeing this even from the U.S. quarters. I think some of these are extensions, right? I think the Indo-PACOM is the Indo-PACOM area of responsibility, and then we have the CENTCOM. So I wouldn't mix those two. And I definitely don't agree with the fact that any of this has to do with weakening India. I think U.S. and India ties have been on an upward trajectory for the past 2 decades now, and I see that continuing. Even recently we've had some sort of issues on the trade front, which again I think is completely normal for mature democracies, mature relationships to have some disagreements every now and then. What matters is how we emerge from them, how we navigate them, and I think U.S. and India have done a great job of navigating even some of these disagreements. And just for our viewers, U.S.-India defense ties have actually been the sort of star of this relationship today. India conducts most of its bilateral and multilateral exercises with the U.S. Defense trade is a solid over $25 billion pipeline. Most of India's maritime suite, major platforms, the P8Is, the Apaches, the transport aircrafts, the C-17s, and I could go on and on, right? The sensors, the sonar buoys, they're all American. So I think as far as U.S. and India are concerned, we're going solid.
Well, great to hear your sense of what's going on there, and I know that you're deep in research on this. So thank you so much, Kriti Upadhyaya.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
And you.